Hey everyone, welcome to another AI conversation. And I'm back on the saddle with Jerel Valarde, who I spoke to, what is it, almost a year ago or more than a year ago. Welcome back to the
Yeah.
show, Jerel. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Things has been great so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we spoke, you were in the middle of a transition, if I recall, no? I think you concluded a political project and you were getting into startups and AI. Very different time to what we have now, for sure. So maybe just for everyone's benefit, give us a quick update on what you've been doing, or what are you doing now? No.
Sure. So that political project, we're turning that open source. We just wanna get that out there and let people work on it. So it's more of a non-profit thing. So yeah, if you're curious about that, go to datospilipinas.com and we're showing our updates there. So since then, we're actually been create so I think I was early on with creating the agent stuff before like majority took on. So that's a good thing about it. And then now where everyone is like building stuff with it, I see a lot of value that I could provide and I could that I've been providing. So I've been trying to give that back to the community with like the communities that we run here in Cebu. So where I am with things is I've been building startups for the past few couple of years in corporate and in venture studios. Now I'm building at a venture studio at full scale, so we're very proud of the work that we're doing there. And one of the things that I realized like just recently that turned this advocacy on was what are we going to do with all of this infrastructure? You know, like the AI, the fears of AI is not something that's gonna happen. Like the technology is already here. It's now just a matter of distribution.
Yep.
And the way I look at it, it's a picture that more people should know about, and it's a scenario that more people should know about. It should be discussed more, um and then that's what like turned on the advocacy for me, and I think that what's triggered this again, and like would love to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, actually, I'm sure some people know, no, what triggered this particular chat was on LinkedIn, diba? We were
Yeah,
chatting about this post by Andreessen Horowitz on BPOs now. But before we get into the
yeah,
weeds
yeah.
of that, I wanted to ask. So, talk about venture studios, no? Because some people might not be familiar with the term. What does a venture studio do? Is it like a venture capitalist? Is it like an accelerator? So how does that work?
So it's not venture capitalists invest in startups and founders to like create stuff. Accelerators do the same thing but at a different angle.
Hmm.
Studios primarily composed of two things. One, you build stuff into your own startup portfolio for like an existing company or like a set of founders. And two is you co-build stuff with the founder. So you take on like you act on like as the CTO, like the product builder for like a founder, and then you
Oh,
have
wow.
like that level of arrangement. So it's primarily around those two, and most venture studios have a mix of like or a bias of like building their own startup studio, or, like startup portfolio in the problems that they want to solve, or like taking in all founders and like building products with them. So that's like what we do at the venture studio.
So wait, like as a founder with no team could work with your studio, or do they have to have a team at least before they
Yeah,
get started?
yeah. So we look for great founders, people who can
Ah,
execute the like let's say you're a civil engineer like 30 years in the industry and you have this unfair advantage at that space and you see a problem you want to solve, but you don't have like the technical expertise to like build a product, scale it like in startup sense. So that's where we come in and we partner with these types of people, and like let's say you're a great founder in your own regard, but you need like this technical expertise to like build the product, scale it, and have like the startup culture and mindset on this. So we partner with these founders and like build a product with them and scale it over. So that's like one of the things we do at a venture studio. Another is like we just built our own startup portfolio. So we also build our own startup products that solve a problem we know dearly and we want to solve. So that's like the two pillars of a venture studio.
oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Maybe we need another episode to talk about more about that, no? Pero
Yes.
sige, let's see. Let's see where we go with today, no? So sige, Andreessen Horowitz, no? So I guess in a nutshell, the pitch was, and I think our LinkedIn chat was literally within a week lang of them putting it out. The whole idea of it was they see the BPO market as a place where that's really ripe for disruption, and only because AI nowadays, especially with agentic AI and the multimodal
Yeah,
capabilities of Gen AI, can really, in theory, thinking about out loud, really disrupt what a typical contact center or a back office BPO can do. And in fact, you might actually have examples now. So, sige, before we get to weeds, could you talk through about the A16Z pitch as far as you understand it, and if
yeah,
you are already aware of some examples of where AI can come in either with a BPO or in replacement of a BPO,
yeah,
or doing that service, take us through it. I'm sure there's a lot of action happening already.
yeah. So that paper is interesting in multiple aspects. So I believe personally they've been talking about this for quite a while now. I've heard a couple of conversations that go like this. This is even not from A16Z, but from another accelerator like YC. Like one of the partners shared about this that the real innovation, the real value from AI is not in incremental improvements. It's in wiping out departments altogether. And they've
Yep.
been thinking about this for quite a while. They've been investing like this. They've been looking for opportunities and startups and founders to do this. And it's been, I think, 2 years now, and like I don't know, like 12 batches in like the AI hype, and they've learned a lot throughout this process. And now we're now seeing like the winners of this particular the bunker. Now, like, what's interesting about this paper in particular is they've publicized it, and
Yeah,
now
did you find
everyone,
that strange that they made that public, or what's your read on that?
yeah, I think people have been talking about this for quite a while now, but like the coming from a VC, that signals the market like, hey, we need to invest in this direction, and I think you also shared about this that now VCs will take a look at this seriously. But there comes a hidden problem in the Philippines. Like, so BPO is a big thing here. Like as everyone knows, like BPO is a big thing here. Employs millions of people per year, gives about 8% of our GDP, and 80% of it is coming from America.
Right.
So that's like a big like it's a big thing here in the Philippines. And like here comes like the problem. And as a former BPO executive, like one of the things that is a big deal about this is our business models, like the business models of the BPO companies here. And if you look at the value chain, it doesn't really like incentivize disruptive innovation. So what do I mean by that? It's the if you look at like the value chain, like BPOs like host agents, human agents to like do a back office process, right?
Yep.
And if we take a look at it if we map out like the entire value chain, so there are the people who's doing the back office work, there's the BPO and like the leadership and the executive ensuring that they do their best work, hiring, backfilling, and all of those processes there. And then there are their clients here on the other side of the world that benefit from the major salary arbitrage, like due to cost of living differences like in the Philippines and in the US. And here comes like a big problem in terms of innovation and startups here, because BPOs and like the major companies here in the Philippines are not really incentivized to like wipe out like the entire department, right?
Yeah,
But
they just moved it to another location. That's
yeah,
what happened.
yes, or like augmenting it with AI is like the main goal of like this particular of like the innovation here in that space. But in the US, like startups there, like they think different. To paint a couple of examples, like in my post that I shared, it's like bland.com is targeting like all voice use cases, right?
Okay.
All voice use cases, and like they're attacking that particular vertical. Tuti.ai is attacking dentistry back office work. So like back office processing, like for dentist clinics across the US. And my favorite here is Caseflow. Caseflow.ai, what they do is they do the same thing as Tuti.ai, but for like lawyers. They do for legal firms and lawyers, they do like the back office processing and all of those back office work that and they even go state to state, door to door, knocking on legal firms' laws. Like, hey, we have legal firms at doors, and like say, hey, we have this software. You might be interested. It could cut your costs. It could like even if it's like the same price, you might not even care because they have money on it. And that like paints a picture. Like the innovators here in our country aim to support and augment the innovators in like the other side of the world, where like if you look at the value chain where the people paying for the party is are looking to wipe out entire departments. Now, this change will not happen overnight because there are contracts or legal issues and all of this safety and security risks that we have all to accomplish. But what will happen the next 10 to 20 years when the demand dies down, when contracts doesn't renew, when the people on the bench like rises up? Now, it sounds like a grim picture, right? Like the one I'm talking about. It's sad and it's something that I'd say it's a little bit scary and it could terrify a lot of people. But I also don't want to subscribe to like the doomer's perspective of things. Like the world is ending, bunker up, buy a lot of goods and like hide yourself. And like it's almost like a cult or religion. I just don't subscribe to that. Like the world is ending type of situation. Like so, how can we paint like a better picture? How can we paint like a hopeful picture for the future and what will happen here? Like in the past 10 years, like people who graduated college, they were looking for a quick buck. There's always this safety net in the BPO. Like, although it's not like as ideal, it's like soul draining work. There's always this safety net, like 30 to 60K as a call center agent, right? What will happen if that's no longer available? And the way I look at it is, this is what really is the core of my advocacy is, I hope that when people have the same problem like as that in the future, like how I just graduated college, what do I need to what I do need to do to get a job or like earn a quick buck? I hope that they look at startups. They found their own startups, they build their own solutions, they actually try to scale that. And that's like the core of my advocacy here. Because that might be the only thing that you cannot automate, like being a founder, being an entrepreneur, solving stuff. And like this is why I want to start this conversation. Like the threats are real, it's happening. The technology is not far in the future, it's here. Like we just had a hackathon with a couple of my friends recently and just played around like what can you do at the voice space, like the voice problem space.
Yeah.
And we found out like now in just like a couple of days you can build like a real functioning like BPO workflow.
Right.
And we're not even like building that in the weekend. We were building like we were solving like the career coaching problem here in the Philippines. Like it's expensive and like how can we automate something we could not automate before because it requires like getting to know you. It's like it requires a human touch. Can we automate that? And we found out that yes, you just need to break down like the parts of it and like focus in on where you can automate and provide value there. And I can dive deep into like how and like our thought process in the Get Your Coach AI as well. But the point there is that it's now accessible. Like having a real conversation, like 200 to 300 milliseconds, like interaction of like a voice agent is now here. You can do that over a weekend. And a year or a couple of years ago, it's like you need like 200 to 250,000 just to like bring that down from 4 seconds to 200 milliseconds. Now it's so accessible.
Right.
And when I took a walk after that hackathon, because it was like 2 to 4 a.m. in the morning when we ended that. So like I'm in the middle of IT Park in Cebu and so like look at all these buildings, all of these infrastructure that we have in like the BPO space. It makes sense because it funds like $30 billion, brings in $30 billion per year, and it's growing. As you mentioned, you know the figures more than I do here, Doc. And the infrastructure makes sense for that business model. But what will happen in the next 10 to 20 years? How might we solve this? And that said, that, okay, we need to talk about this. This is not a problem one person can solve alone. And you should like have like more minds like thinking about this, preparing for this, and actually like building stuff to ensure that we can safely pivot. Because frankly, I don't trust companies to be so on the good of their hearts to like shift their entire business model just because to employ more people, right? That's not like how companies work as we know it. Sure, there are some good apples there, but it's just like not for the entire industry. Yeah, so that's what triggered a couple of my posts. I posted another one in sort of PH with which surprisingly ruffled a lot of feathers as well as like
Oh,
people
did
got
it?
fun. Yeah, it did. It's around like
PH naman, from my view, let's not talk about it too much.
sure.
Parang it's ruffle your feathers as a service eh.
Yes.
I'll leave it there. No, I'm not gonna take it further than that. So yeah, wait. Let me break down. There's a lot you mentioned there. Well, first is, yeah, when you say infrastructure, you're talking about, I guess, IT and property primarily, no? Like all these office buildings.
Yeah.
And you're right, no? The BPO sector is, I think, the largest consumer of commercial real estate. And that's why, as you might have heard, there's a real estate glut right now because of the Pogos, no? When they departed, suddenly all these condos got vacated. Who knew? Karamihan pala of these buildings are actually Pogo related, no? 'Di
Yeah,
ba?
I did not even know that. So that's another
Oh yeah,
thing.
well yeah. Now
Yeah.
you know. There's like a 3 year oversupply, or something like that. Condo,
That part I heard. Yes.
not
Yeah.
necessarily house and lots. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
3 year oversupply. So that means the gravy that these real estate companies have been, riding, gravy train that they've been riding, is
Yeah.
really on the basis of that Pogo. And you can see
Yeah.
talaga there's a direct correlation. No? The more people coming in, and Pogo is kind of another type of BPO. Actually, that's an ongoing discussion right now on how many of them will be converted into proper BPOs. For example,
Okay.
even if the nature of the business was kind of like BPO, there's kind of a social stigma to it because it's related to gambling and
Yeah.
whatever. No. So, anyways, okay, let's set that aside.
Yeah. Yeah.
You also mentioned eliminating entire departments. Um, I think that predates AI pa nga eh. I think people have been trying to do that.
100%. Yeah, and you're hitting this right on the nail kasi that's like the main value drive up for SaaS businesses as well.
Yeah,
But what changed recently is this entire new problem space that you couldn't have solved with just
tackle.
like tackle with like traditional programming, rule based and like the innovation you got for internet, cloud, and like rule based programming, which you can do a lot of by the way already. Now this new entire problem space was opened up, like with generative AI,
Yeah,
and that's where things are changing because it's happening a lot faster than people thought. Like there are already SaaS BPO startups before, but it wasn't just as useful as it could be now with like generative AI technologies. There are still some major industry problems that we have to solve for it to like for widespread adoption. Some of it are technical, some of it are not, like people and legal issues that we have to like consider. And and um and yeah, this new problem space is just ripe for the taking.
yeah,
And one of like the investment criteria of like accelerators like YC, are you solving a problem that just opened up like because of like the generative AI innovation, or is it something that is it something that you know that you can solve it like that in that new problem space? Because there are a lot of verticals that you can go into this and disrupt. And yeah, so that's like the entire thing here. And like this paper here by Andreessen Horowitz with the BPO business model and how AI just disrupted really just like brings it to more people's attention. And what I like about this is now we're having conversations in the Philippines about this because they believe me, they've been having this for quite a while now, and now like it's like giving us a chance. Like if we build startups to solve these same problems here in the Philippines, even though it's still like a BPO, but instead of like people, it's more of like SaaS agents, like to do all of this. That still brings a lot of like money back here in the country, and that's what like I hope for like in the future, like in place of all of these call center BPO processes. Because let's face it, if it's not for the money, who really wants to be like a call center agent? Like that's like another thing as well. It's soul draining work. You're being abused like verbally, and you know all of these like bad stuff about like the call center agent industry. And I'm not saying that's like the entire BPO space, but that's like a significant portion of it. My hope is in the future where like our bright minds is we'll take a look at, because instead of the BPO, I hope it would be like startups. Like I hope it will be as accessible as BPO is. And yeah, that's like the core of my advocacy here.
sige, let's break this down kasi as I mentioned, even before Gen AI, even before agentic, companies have always wanted to be have always wanted to automate, no? I mean, we had earlier waves like RPA, like big data.
Yes, yes.
And sige, maybe the first question I would ask is, do we already or do you already have a sense of just how successful AI automation really is? Only because I think it's McKinsey. They have this legendary statistic, no? 7 out of 10 or 69% of any transformation project will end up either failing or getting delayed or going over budget. And actually, if you dig into the literature enough, now I might write an article about this. Outsourcing is one of many parang levers or many tools that you can do in lieu of automation, because automation nga historically has had a high rate of failure. And this is something IT people, tech people, startup people rarely mention. But I've been through these projects. Totoo siya, no? Sometimes guys, 80 to 90%, at least in the Philippine context, no? I mean, if you look at CRM implementations, ERP implementations, data warehouse implementations, sure ball yan. It's not gonna happen on time. It's not gonna happen on budget. It's
100%.
not, and it's not necessarily because of tech. It's because of the people. So let's tackle that first part muna, since it's still relatively the early days pa of AI agents. Do you have a sense of whether, kasi I can concede that the development cycle might be better or faster because nga agentic enables product development at a
Yeah,
faster rate, no?
yeah.
But how's the success rate, at least anecdotally from what you've seen?
Yeah. So one thing I just realized, I've been using the wrong mic. Is this a lot better? Like, how does this sound?
Yeah, better, much better.
Okay, crazy. um, okay, just to bounce about your question is, what's the success rate of this and how does this impact like this entire picture? I'd say like even in startups, even if you have 98% failure rate or even 99% failure rate, it's still gonna be worth it because it's not in the failures that count. Like in if we find a successful use case, and this is just like how startups and SaaS works, if you find a successful use case, you hit product market fit, you just need one successful player, one to three successful players, and they'll capture the entire market. And that's also like a mindset problem here in the Philippines. Like we look at all of the failures in this particular industry, and we say like, okay, this is not a good place to be in. Whereas when I look at the industry, startups in YC have been failing with like a high success rate ever since ever, a high failure rate as well. But when I look at it, they already have like a couple of winners that are capturing the marketplace and the market space here, and you don't need a lot. You just
But are they capturing the new market, or are they kind of kasi the argument is disrupt BPOs eh. So 'di ba before the call we were talking about, is it a new market getting created who have yet to outsource, but instead of outsourcing they went to AI,
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
are they disrupting those who are existing outsourcing and then they stop now or lessened it because of AI?
Now here I bring in a product practice, like in more of the the adopters, the innovation curve. You know, like the early adopters, the innovators, early adopters, the early majority, and the late majority, and the laggards. Um, Whenever you're building something like this, you always need to target the innovators and the early adopters. Whether that's a new market or like the existing market, whether it's in an underserved market before with like the BPO process, because if we look at it like intentionally, it's not perfect. Like you have like hiring issues, backfill issues, people leaving the company, and like all of these open positions that weren't just filled. So there's like this underserved market already with just like the BPO space. This is why we don't have just one BPO. We have like thousands of them, and like that. And now when we have AI, um, now we have AI. It's just like another player here. And if you look at like the value chain, if you look at the value chain for the BPO, right, you have like the I think I shared this earlier as well. Like you have like the BPOs here who's focused on like serving the people and like ensuring great work and like hiring more people. And you have like the competitor, like the clients here who are looking to outsource this BPO process because they already have options. They can hire someone as an employee to do the back office processes. They can do something onshore, like some like a firm in America instead to do this office if it's something that requires that, or like it's a strategic move for them. Now there's this third player where it's not like it's not offshore, it's not onshore, it's not like an employee. There's this SaaS and like the AI agent startups that can essentially do the same task and it can compete with it. Now, if you're targeting the early majority, you don't even need to like cut down the cost. Like you can play with them at like the same level or even at a more expensive level because the early majority, like the early adopters, the innovators don't care about the price. They just need this problem solved. And if there's no better alternative, like that's like what we'll go at. So an example here, this is why we also like tackle this particular project in our hackathon. It's the Get Your Coach AI. It's career coaching for people. You know, like how do we get better jobs and like how do we navigate difficult work situations? Executives are already doing this. Like to hire a career coach, it takes around $200 an hour to like $1,000 an hour. They're very expensive, but they provide a lot of value and they allow the people to focus on the most important problems they need to solve, like business coaches, right? Now, with AI agents, can we automate this? This requires human touch. This requires domain expertise. This requires like getting to know the person that you're serving, right? Turns out the answer is yes. So if you break down all of the use cases and like you look at it intentionally, like piece by piece, you can automate some parts. You can leave some parts out, and you just focus on the most important ones that people are willing to pay for, and like scale that up. And our approach here is like, okay, interviewing sucks, right? Like who wants to like who like there are only like a certain breed of people who are good at interviews. And more often than not, we hear the story that the interviews are like the job application process is a lot harder than the job itself. So how can we prepare people to tackle that? So one of the features that we build is like instead of like hiring a person to do a mock interview with you, what if an AI agent can do that? And it turns out it can. It can do like the entire mock interview process, like a phone interview, behavioral interview, leadership interview, technical interview. And if you get them to do that and like take in the transcript, analyze that, you're providing a lot of value at an underserved market. And I share this example. I share this example because when we finished this hackathon, we were walking across the street in IT Park and said like, damn, look at all the infrastructure here. And like we built something, we automated something that you couldn't automate before with traditional SaaS and rule-based programming. We did that with agentic AI and like the even not even that really comprehensive part of it. It's just like an agent and a workflow. And it got me thinking about like the infrastructure that we have for BPO. And like what do we do with this disruption that's not happening in this country? There are already players out there that are tackling this in the US, and they're knocking door to door ensuring that like, hey, look at this new competitor, and they're not selling to BPOs because BPOs aim to augment, and the thesis there is not like not just like augmentation, but the real value is in wiping out departments. So you don't advertise to the BPOs when you're looking at to provide unproportional amount of value towards like your investment. You tackle the value chain at its roots. Where's the money coming from, and who's paying for this, and what are their needs? And turns out, yeah, you just need to talk about to the clients in the US, to like get them to like try out your service and like solve that problem for them, and now you're essentially tackling the demand. Now, how does that impact the Philippines? We already have like the infrastructure here. We already have like the distribution. It's the incumbent versus the startup again. It's the disruption. Sorry, it's will the disruption will the distributor catch up to the innovation? This is the incumbent's play. Can I catch up to these startups like attack that are scaling in the US, like attacking my value chain like early on? Or will the startups catch up to the distribution? Will these startups capture enough market that the distribution cannot take in on this? And it's already happening now. Now the
Yeah,
biggest
if I can
problem
interrupt
here.
there, no. I think yeah, you're correct. In any innovation naman, it's the small upstarts versus the big guys. I think to really break it down, and this is one way of looking at it. Either you're tackling a market that didn't exist before. In other words, let's say you're a telco. You're Telstra. Telstra's a good straw man kasi the CEO of Telstra, if it's still the same one, hates call centers. No? And he keeps saying call centers will be dead in 5 years. And awan ng Diyos, that was 15 years ago. Although I think relatively to the entire volume, they've been reducing their percentage of reliance on call centers and outsourcing, but they still use them. So, sige,
Yes.
you're Telstra, you want to optimize. And in your toolkit, you have these outsource, automate, and then under automate, you have traditional and then AI. Parang ganon, no?
Yes.
And historically, at least let's put this as a base. Automation has really failed 7 out of 10 times. Yun yung nangyari. And that means the flip side of that is rather than automate, you outsource. And outsourcing, I guess, I wouldn't say it's 100% success rate, but it's quite a
Higher.
mature market, quite kasi if you look at this pitch of A16Z, no,
Yeah.
inconsistent outcome. So they're trying to say under current regime, manual BPO work, you get inconsistent outcome, while
Yes.
an agent will give you the same outcome. Actually, on this basis, first basis alone, I would actually question it because it cannot be inconsistent if it keeps happening, and this is not just humans. Remember, BPOs also run with IVRS systems. By the
Yeah.
time your call gets routed to a person, you would have gone through a menu of options.
Yeah.
That would have taken all of the repetitive work. So actually, it's the unstructured, out of the box inquiry. Let's say you're calling a bank, or calling a telco, that gets to the human, and then now that'll be supplanted by AI agent upfront. And yun then, I can't necessarily say right now, no, I'm talking in general, that the quality of the outcome or the experience, if you're talking to an AI agent, is actually consistent. In fact, much of the feedback nga is people hate talking to robots. They'd rather talk to humans. Again, that could be anecdotal,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
gotta consider that first argument first. Kasi if we're saying en masse the system's giving you bad quality, then there's really a reason to shift, no? So one muna yun, ah. The other is cost. You say people will be willing to pay higher price. And I would argue then that's not early majority. That's probably the late majority. You're willing to pay the costs of it. Early majority will look for a reason to switch. As in a really good reason to switch.
The majority
It's a
innovators
very cost is
are
a very
actually
compelling
designing.
reason. I could be wrong, but anyway, just hear me out. Quality, if we're saying quality is bad, therefore AI gives better quality, I'll consider that a fallacy already because AI does not necessarily give better quality upfront. There probably will be applications that where AI shines, but it's not, writ large the entire call center experience. No, it's talking about call centers. No, second is cost, and if it's not quality and cost, is it time to market? Maybe from what I'm hearing with you, with your hackathon, the development time is much shorter in an AI agentic approach than it is with a traditional
Yeah.
automation. But again, there you're not really competing with outsourcing. You're competing with the older type of automation. And as a whole, that
Yeah.
entire stream has had a high rate of failure, no? So yun parang can we dig deep into that, the quality, the
Yes.
cost, and then the
Yes.
time to market so we can really establish just how much of a threat it is currently.
Yeah. So now I actually want to share like an opposing perspective on this. That is also an anecdote in its own means, but at the same time, the picture that I'm getting from like user feedback, because I now build AI just for a living, it's that um people are actually more willing to open up to an AI agent if you do it right. Like one particular use case that I was exposed to in like the past few years was in the credit industry. If you're talking to a person about your credit situation, it comes with like awareness of like this person might judge me. If you talk to like an agent about that, you're like this agent cannot judge me because like it doesn't exist in the first place, and sometimes it's more welcome. And when one of the use cases that I posted recently was like the AI Scrum Master, like this Scrum Master project management like type of situation. Can we automate that? And we built like a quick voice agent around this. Like this particular Scrum Master is designed and it exists to care about you, to ask you about your blockers, to summarize your work for you and provide clarity for you. Now, now that actually, one of the comments I've got there is like, where can I get this? Like the voice here is so soothing, and like this is a lot better than my current Scrum Master. And like, oh my god, and that's like a different perspective now. Now I've heard the perspective before, like people don't like talking to chatbots, to AI agents. This is like the wave of innovation that we've failed at like before, because chatbots and automation around this space for like the BPO have been existing for the past 10 years. There's this one startup here in the Philippines that are just focused on that conversational agents. Before it was cool, but at the same time, they had like a different fundamental technology using that. They do, as you mentioned, rule-based RPA, and it's like rule-based na control over this. Now generative AI can actually simulate human conversation. Now like the voice and like the conversation is there. There's still some parts that you can tell it's not human, in a way that you can click it, you can just like give it like dumb information, and then it might screw over. But there are now ways to just like prevent that. The Scrum Master assistant that I've built, Scrum Master agent that I built, I've designed that with a safety clause. If you're now out of scope, bring it back to the conversation politely. Hey, that's like, if you ask it like, hey, tell me about rubber ducks, like this, and then like that agent will say, that's all interesting and cool, but let's go back to the topic at hand. And so like, okay, now like you now have like a conversational experience that's not as far as for humans, and even better than most humans in how we communicate. And it's already there. Like the technology is already here. Now it's just like the matter of there are still a couple of problems we need to solve. Primarily adoption and like the and
No,
like
adoption, if I can interrupt, no, adoption is the outcome. It's not the problem. You adopt, people will adopt if it's
yeah,
cheaper, faster, or better quality. And you're saying it's better quality. I guess on that note, I don't see the evidence that you're saying. So let's keep that at stalemate, no? Pero let's
sure.
bring it ngayon to cost. Kasi what I'm hearing from you pa rin is, I can easily create, I can easily deploy, I can easily blah blah blah. So that's all. That seems to be more on the time to market side of things. Na sige, what it takes to develop from a traditional RPA application can now be done by Gen AI. So
Yeah,
that seems to me more like, oh sige, we can iterate faster, we can deploy faster. Maybe you don't need software developers as much. That doesn't necessarily imply a better customer experience, but it implies a faster, what do you call this, development cycle. So let's say for the time being, let's consider that a win for AI. Okay, for AI, it's twice as fast or three times as fast to come up with, solutions.
yeah,
And in theory, if you do that consistently, then you will score leads, no. But I think ultimately it comes back to cost. And in
yeah.
fact, your earlier point was people will be willing to pay more.
Yes.
Um, can you break that down? Like
Sure,
how
sure, sure.
much more, or
I'm happy
what's
to.
the
So
proposition for more? No.
yeah, yeah. So just to go back to that point, like the cost in AI development and like building like AI startups, it's not actually on the people side. Contrary, like smaller and smaller teams are building bigger and bigger startups. Mid Journey, Vapi, or notorious at this. Like it's Instagram, but with more, but in the AI space, right? And like the development and the building part of the products is not the most expensive part for AI solutions. It's actually the inference. Like when you talk to it, when you use it, you still need to like pay for gas for the AA agent to run, right? And this is the part where people are not used to thinking about this. Whereas traditional SaaS for the past 10 to 20 years, it's a subscription cost plus a little bit of an elastic cost per user or like per usage, right? The per usage thing already exists in cloud compute and all of these softwares that rely on like flexible pricing, per pay per use pricing. But in AI, it's 100% like you need to consider like the pay per use pricing methodology, and people aren't really used to thinking about it like that, because the value from SaaS is from its reproducibility. Like you just find out the you just solve the right problem in the right way, and like the people who have the problem will pay for it, and like it's the exact same thing that they pay for. It's like the art of like building a good product. But now, like in SaaS, even though you have like that use case, you have that particular understanding of it, you pay it per minute. And if like the decision makers aren't used to looking at this like, okay, so I have to like pay for like this on par with a human agent, like with all of like the hiring and all of those considerations like bonuses and incentive salaries and all of that. Now you need to look at like the tokens per usage, like minutes per usage, minutes used by this agent, and how much value is there like to actually like that is brought back by the investment. Now, now it's still expensive because we're still building like the infrastructure side on like the compute layer of this entire industry. But I expect it to become cheaper as time goes on. And the like one computation here is like 1 minute could be like around 10 pesos in like PH in turn conversational all of like the factors. Now that's just like an estimate for one particular provider, but if you do that for like an entire month or so, let's compute all of the usage there, it comes up to be equal or as more. Now, when we talk about like the adoption problem here, people at the innovators and early majority just need a reason, like a shiny, like a reason that this is a shiny object to invest in, and they did invest in that. Like, the hardest people to convince is where the money is at, like the laggards part of this, which is the report that where the money is, but at the same time, like people just want to experiment, and we have like a shiny hammer to break things with. So um where this becomes a big issue is that like for me personally and what I see in the industry is that we don't have enough AI startups here in the Philippines. There are a couple, but we need a lot more because if the industry is heading towards that route and like the innovators of this particular problem are not here, that leaves us in a very awkward position with a lot of displacement. Now this like I say this as a with confidence because of I really believe that we're solving the same problem with BPO onshore hiring an employee and now AI agents. It's the same problem we're solving. Back office processes, the work that nobody wants to do, dealing with customers and customer service and all of that. And with how the market is changing, like my hopes is like we here in the Philippines build our own AI startups and transition into this industry. So that's where I'm coming from with this.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
terms
sige.
of
Before we go to AI local startups, no, let's close off the BPO angle. Kasi nga, yun na nga, if we say quality is split, in some cases, the experience is better, in some cases, the experience is worse. And we say the time to market is for AI. But if we're saying the cost is kind of against AI or it's still expensive, then I don't see a massive wave of adoption. I mean, if we are really making it simplistic, no, in that scenario. On the other hand, adoption kasi can come from markets that have yet to be tapped. You know, the statistic I always get when I talk to people in IBPAP is if you consider the entire parang ano universe of outsourceable jobs, only 30% has been outsourced. And that includes India. And that kind of aligns with the innovation, the diffusion of innovation. So the innovators and early adopters and the early majority, wala pa nga early majority, early adopters, maybe a little bit of early majority for outsourcing is already tapped out. And the remainder, and this is something worth digging into because if you're into AI product development, what keeps the 70% of that market from outsourcing? Could be many things, no? Maybe the job is hard to outsource, maybe they haven't invested in the process. So yun yung parang for me the real crux of the argument. Because if we go back to Andreessen Horowitz and the rest of them, I'm actually tempted to reply nga. Somebody did a tweet, ano, a tweet thread about it. I think the author of that article, si Kimberly, I'm going to say you guys have not defined the economics of it enough. And if you can't define it, cost wise, speed wise, quality wise, then your valuations will always be off. Mangyayari dito is you'll have bloated valuations again, and then the revenue won't emerge. And we've seen it happen in many tech plays. We've seen it happen with blockchain. We've seen it happen with big data. It's really not an easy peasy thing. You're saying one successful player will own the market. Actually, what I'm seeing are players who are going into the augmentation route. Like you have companies like Sanas and Crisp. They're quite popular now. I don't know how many clients they're booking. And their angle is to neutralize accents, is to reduce noise. So it overall improves the quality of the experience. Then there's a company called Super Focus who I interviewed way back in 2023. They were already looking at agent assist, no? And when we say agent assist, the AI is actively listening on the call and they're proactively giving the agent suggestions. They actually said they could go full automation. And in fact, if it's a chat-based application, not a voice-based application, full automation is actually possible already as early as 2023. I don't know how far they've gone then with that use case, because I surmise the revenue model hasn't really worked out. Now, I'm just guessing, no? I want to
Yeah,
talk to them nga again. Eh. So yun,
yeah,
eh, parang before we get to the local AI startup industry muna, could you share some insights on that issue, like the economics of it? Does it make sense? Do you
yes,
see more
yes.
switching, or is it more
Yeah,
new market who have yet to outsource? I
yeah.
mean, into
So
AI.
actually, Doc, my stance here is the quality and the technology is already here, and things just change like almost like in 1 year. Like it's incomparable. Like since we last talked, like the AI agents of like 2022 were horrible compared to like what we have now in 2025, and like in many angles and aspects. Now, in terms of cost, it's um and like your question to what why is like the 70% of like the market not adopting it, and like the examples that you've cited on towards like improving like the agent experience as well as like removing like the accenting, like removing the accent of like the AA, the human agents. It's it's at the first division of like the value chain here at like the delivery. But where the value is here where the people are paying. Like they're paying to solve this problem. And going back to Clay Christensen's framework of job to be done, like people buy software to do a job, to solve a particular problem. And if you look at it in that regard, and the quality and technology is here, um if we just look at it at the cost of like execution of this and the people, and not like the value and the people that are who are paying for this, we're gonna miss out on a huge
No, no, no.
market.
I think you misunderstand what I mean by that, no. I'm talking enterprise adoption kasi. No, retail adoption, no question, no. A lot of what you're saying about SaaS companies,
What enterprise like
that's
the
like B2C, no? When we talk B2B, there are switching costs and there are also hidden costs. And I
yeah
feel that and I'm all for it actually. In fact, IBPAP's stats say 11% of members have already adopted AI in whatever form, no?
yeah
And that's
yeah
again diffusion of innovation. Those are already the early adopters, no? The remainder are work in progress.
yeah
And yun na nga, maybe those decisions aren't really triggered locally. Maybe it's because of their foreign bosses, no, in the US or in
yeah
India.
yeah
So in other words, I don't think the BPOs are taking it like sitting down. They're really tackling it ahead. In
yes
fact,
yes
I would even say they're ahead of local companies. Yun na nga eh.
yeah
Pero enterprise adoption at the like if you are a client of a BPO, for you to drop that relationship and switch to an AI provider or maybe hybrid, like we'll give 20% to the AI provider, we'll keep 80% to the BPO and then slowly phase out. I feel really needs to the nuances really need to
yes
be
yes
fleshed out, no?
yes
Not enough to say that technologies here, many technologies have been around but have never been adopted. And like kunyari, consider yourself or tayo, let's be a pitch team for AI. I don't necessarily know what I'm pitching. 'Di ba? I mean, what am I pitching to, let's say, a bank, no, who have outsourced to, I don't know, to Concentrix or to Teleperformance. I'll tell them, drop these guys because we're cheaper, or drop these guys because we're faster, or drop these guys because the quality is better. I think it still remains to be seen whether the technology is there or not. No. Now, on the
yes
other hand,
yes
if you are a German company who have yet to outsource, I can say, hey, look, there are very few German speakers in the Philippines and in India, so don't bother doing that. Go with this German AI na who can help you. Iba yon. That's a different use case which we should certainly look
So
at.
that's a new underserved market that we're talking about. But at the same time, Doc, here's where our opinions diverge on this particular issue. It's that um like enterprise adoption in like the BPO space will never catch up to like the startup adoption here, because it's the incumbent versus startup again. It's the distribution versus innovation. Startups are innovation, and their goal is to catch up to distribution, capture enough of the market that they become default alive and like scale up. Like the product market fit on this, and it's a known problem. And you hit it right on the nail, because in enterprise use case for like the people who are the clients of the BPOs, there's switching costs and there's this risk that they have to like consider, and there's just a lot of factors here. This is why my timeline on like my predictions on this thing where it becomes a bigger issue is not like in the next 1 to 2 years. It's in the next 10 to 20 years when the contracts
Okay,
is
sige, hold that thought. Sorry to keep
technology of
thing, no.
advance. Yeah, sure.
If we say 20 years, then Andreessen Horowitz doesn't have a business. You understand?
Why,
Kasi
why,
for
why?
them to get valuations, this is my very simplistic view. We're talking a switch of 1 to 5 years, no, at most. If we're saying, oh, in 20 years, we're probably gonna capture that market. Wala yan. Your pitch
No,
just
like,
thrown out the window, no. I
mostly,
mean, YC will probably throw that out, no. Has to happen now. There has to be an actual burning need, and if the only argument basing on this article is that the outcomes are inconsistent, so it's really more of a quality thing. I don't see a cost angle.
no, there
Then
are.
wala. I don't think. I mean, I'm just gonna adopt that extreme
Sure.
opinion. Na wala. This is just fluff. This is just vaporware, no.
No, no,
But
no.
again, we have to really be meeting somewhere in the middle here. There has to be an angle that, hey, look, Philippine. For example, I'll give you an angle already. See if it makes sense. We want to outsource to the Philippines. So I'm sitting in the US, but they can't get jobs fast enough because they can't produce enough warm bodies. That's actually a clear and present existential threat in my view, because nga we don't have a demand problem, we have a supply problem. So for me, let's say I'm Telstra again, hey, I can't send most of my volume of calls back to Manila or Cebu or Davao. I'll send it to AI. Baka pwedeng ganun yung angle, no? But for us to say that the technology is already there, therefore switch, I think it's not gonna wash eh. Yun lang yung thought ko.
Now, I'd like to paint a picture in this. Like first on like the business model of venture capitalism, where you stand on this, they invest in things that like could become unicorns. And to become like a unicorn, traditionally, what we understand and how we see the market adapt in the past 3 decades or so, it's more in the it takes 5 to 10 years and even more. Like they're looking for those winners to like pay for the entire experiment. Like and it's not gonna happen in the first 5 years because like the market just doesn't change that way. And then the argument here is you're hitting it right on the nail. Like it's not just even at the quality level, but also in the hiring. Like I want to paint like a innovation picture here. It's the gun versus the bow. It's the crossbow versus the bow. Whereas the bow is like 100% better. Like the crossbow, it penetrates more. It has more power to it, has more accuracy to it, and it's just like a better equipment than just like the crossbow. But to to get a master like bowman, you need to train them for 5 to 10 years. Now, to get like peasants to use like crossbows and guns, it takes just like a couple of days and like shooting, and now that becomes like a major issue. Like this is why bows and crossbows existed across each other for a long time. Like it did not like wipe out the entire industry, but like there were a lot of crossbow adoptions because it's a lot easier to set up. Now, if you look at like the underserved market here, the people who are hiring, but like if you look at like, there's a lot of issues with like people as agents because you need to hire them, you need to train them, you need to retain them. People have lives, they have to leave, and like get like better opportunities elsewhere. Whereas if you have like get if you look at like agents, like if you build a useful enough system that the customers love, it all goes down to the bottom line. It's a lot cheaper in terms of like consideration here. And when I say that, I come from a place of care. Like as an innovator, I constantly think about this when we're building stuff around this. And the reason I'm talking about it is because we really need to like face it upfront and like make real plans around it. And it's not just quality anymore. It's also like the switching costs, as you mentioned, and the risk accompanied by that. Like we don't know if this is actually just a good demo or if it's gonna work. But from where I see things are right now in 2025, it's already working. It's already working. It's being adopted by like the first set of the market, and we just need to like take. It will just take a while for it to like capture. So I'd say we really need more investment in this space, but at the same time, it's going to be a challenge because most of the executives, most of the decision makers in our country alone are at the first part of like the value chain, the delivery and like the execution part of it. They're not at like the value creation where the value is at. Like they're paying us to like solve the problem. Now, the biggest problem here is like the shift in business models. Will companies like I don't want to throw names, but will BPO companies like um be nimble enough to shift their entire business model to adopt this? And it's like
Eh,
that.
sorry to come
Yeah,
in here, no. The angle that Andreessen Horowitz says is that BPOs will never adopt it. There's no incentive. Kasi nga, the way AI works and the way a BPO works are fundamentally opposite. Kasi yung isa nga is automation, the other will be, outsourcing. And the middle ground, which is augmentation, we can probably argue that's already happening anyway, but you didn't really move the needle in terms of people are still going to outsource. And even in from what I'm seeing, the adoption rate, it's still a cost argument. Now, okay, I want to grow my revenue by 10%, but I don't want to grow my headcount by 10%. So parang ganon. The delta of that, like say I grow by 5%, but actually my revenue grows by 30% as a BPO, is because of the augmentation argument. So sige, let's set that aside first.
sure.
The bottom line really would be, for this pitch to work, is we can make such a compelling cost argument, or maybe the types of work or flexibility, because there's also very little discussion on it so far as I can see. I'm trying to sift through this. Like for example, BPOs are enormous businesses, and then they broke it down, and then here's the impact, no, the front and back office, as you keep saying. I agree, no? In fact, the trend now is for more back office work. We call that GCC, no? Yung mga Global Capability Center. The margins are higher. The delta of the revenue is also much higher as opposed to front office work, which is, contact center, transcription. That's actually petering out. Single digits na siya, no? While back office work growing by leaps and bounds. I'll give you a clue. Nurses. We have a nursing shortage in the Philippines. Bakit? Medical BPOs are hiring all of them, no? We have an accountant shortage in the Philippines. I took up accounting, but I never practiced it. Had I practiced it, I might be working in these BPOs, because financial BPOs, yung mga financial back office, mga accounting, ganyan, controllership, hindi nga banking eh. Like the finance department of a liquor company, something like that, a global liquor company will outsource here. And I remember before, there was a lucrative parang job opportunity for accountants. They'd be working in yung mga tax havens. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Yung Caymans, Virgin Islands. Because nga, people send tons of money there. They have a huge industry of, financial bean counters. And Filipinos are finding really good employment there. But that's a very, very small, cohort. Pero itong mga financial back office, laki, no? And it's growing fast. So in that respect, let's just look at healthcare and finance, no? Para we're more specific. For an AI startup to come in, they need to be able to say, um, don't outsource your care planning now. Don't outsource your telemedicine. This bot will do it. That's one approach. And then for a financial back office setup, and I'm sure there are people trying that, no. Sabi niya, oh, don't outsource accounting anymore to the Philippines. You don't need an accountant. This GPT will do it for you. Maybe that's the argument you're saying. Wipe out the entire accounting department, do it. Notwithstanding pa the regulations and whatever, no. Like
Yeah,
healthcare is notoriously
regulate.
rife with regulations.
We're,
Finance
we're
is the same. Parang ganun dapat yung angle, shouldn't it be? For us to actually argue that BPOs are gonna get wiped out, no, because of this.
now my argument, sorry, just to refine on this, I don't think people will be wiped out as a whole, but you're hitting it, you're honing in on something that I see will be like the thing that remains human. It's the ownership and accountability. You cannot sue an AI agent because it malpracticed something. Now there will be regulated industries that will just like focus on that. Like there's been a case early on, like in 2022, like lawyers setting up ChatGPT and decided like, hey, what was it? It just outputted like this thing, and they published that as like like legal evidence. And I believe they got this bar
Para,
for like
pero puro fake, diba? Yeah, that was the early
they
days.
hallucinated for it. So and you can't sue like the providers on it. There's like terms and conditions that they to protect them and all of that. And at the same time, you can't sue something you can just turn off. You can just turn off and like kill,
But
and
you
that's
can probably sue the company, siguro. The company will be liable, right?
if
If
they do
the
not
BPO.
cover that with like the terms and conditions.
Okay.
But like don't like usually companies like this have in the terms and conditions, don't use this and we're not legally liable for anything. and if it becomes like a legal thing. And now that's going to be like, I think, the silver bullet, or like the boon of like BPO, which is like ownership and accountability, which is what will essentially hold this alive, because there are, like in healthcare, as we mentioned, like it's heavily regulated. You can't just outsource everything to the AI, because who's going to be responsible for bad output? And same with like the legal space. Although you can have like an AI empowered like lawyer, and I think that's going to be what's going to happen. But at the same time, it's going to be, you can't sue like the providers for it. Just how like our legal system and like innovation works right now. And if like the regulators instead try to shift 100% of responsibility towards like the AI providers and all of that, you'll have like a similar situation to Europe, where like, like, let's not just touch that market until they
Till
let
we
us.
figured it out. Wait, sige, can I react to this? Because this is also an angle eh. And it's actually a wider angle to liabilities. It's this whole legal and political structure. So yeah, you're right. Liabilities, ethics, no, that's a big deal. But at the moment, unless companies, like for example, Trump actually scrapped Biden's EO on AI, and that included some of this responsible ethics stuff, no? Um, so I think that would be a factor eventually, to the extent that regulations like GDPR, the EU AI Act will kick in and affecting AI. I actually just came from a 4-day session with the UK government on this. Kasi they were surveying all of these
Yeah,
tawag dito, mga AI regulations. And the question I kept asking, not necessarily to them, but with the crowd, I was there with government agencies,
yeah.
DICT, DTI, is in GDPR, for example, there was a pressure to adopt a universal privacy regulation because the EU wanted a single market. And you had
Yeah.
many countries there, they had inconsistent mga privacy regulations. So they did that, no? And then by parang copy paste, the rest of the world sort of adopted it. We adopted it, Philippines, not necessarily because we found it, kind of fashionable, although that's part of it. But there was also this pressure from the ASEAN group, no? Na we also need somehow mga parang harmonized privacy regulations because ASEAN also wanted to do that, yung ASEAN integration, no, a single market. I don't know to what extent it succeeded,
Yeah.
pero that was a pressure. Another law that got passed same time was the Cybercrime Prevention Act, no, where you have things like identity theft, libel. That was, as I learned pala later, a product also of external pressures. There was this Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, and we were a member. So anyway, all I'm saying is, in many of these universal regulations happening, if we talk about the ethics side, it's not necessarily because the country wanted to do it parang wala lang internally. It's actually an external tawag dito, pressure. And then you can trace it all the way back to, the prohibition of nuclear arms development, biological weapons. Ano yan? UN level, League of Nations
So
level
different thing.
protocol yan.
Yeah.
So for I don't necessarily see that universal pressure from anywhere other than, hey, EU did it, should we do it? In fact, it actually works contrary nga na you don't want to be one of the first countries to regulate AI because you might miss out naman on the innovation.
Stifle innovation. Will
Do you
stifle innovation.
see that happening in the at least Philippines or regionally anytime soon? No, and I have a second angle to that, but I'll
Sure, sure.
stop muna here.
We have a bigger problem here rather than just regulation. We don't have enough founders. Like,
Okay.
we don't have enough founders and like the skill set to actually do this. What like a couple of crucial skill sets here in our country that are needed was one, like the founder mindset, like how do we actually build things that we want, and it builds on top, like my core bread and butter of my skill set is product management and product leadership. It's We don't even like I only know a handful of students who know that this is an actual career, and like, no, we're hiring for this. There's like hundreds of like job applications, like job openings on LinkedIn and more that are unposted, but we don't know like about this particular like career. No one's teaching this, no college teaching this. Product management in like business schools are more of like brand management in Procter and Gamble and like the traditional market space. We don't know how to build products that people want. And my qualms here is, with or without regulations, we don't even have enough founders who want to challenge regulation. And that's like the way I look at this. That um and I've been talking to a lot of friends because I've also been a huge part of like the community here in Cebu. It's like we need winners. We need people who win at the startup game. More of them to show people that this is an actual path. Like people can invest in this. People can risk their first 10 years out of college at this particular sport and get rewarded for it. We need like that particular of like culture that we need to change here. And it's a very challenging problem. And there are many aspects to this, like community problem, like resource problem, investment problem. But I will always root that towards the founder, towards like the founder problem, because like if we just have the founders, if we just develop that particular like population of people, everything else will follow because founders are creative. They take ownership. Like there's a lot of disadvantages to starting a startup here in the Philippines. Yeah, sure. Like, but like, who cares? Like, do it anyway. Like that. We need
Yeah,
those type.
I
Yeah,
think there's kind of a just to react, no. Speaking as a founder also.
yeah,
Um we've all been through the gauntlet. Like I mean just for the record, I've never had a productive conversation with any VC or any investor, Philippines, with any accelerator, any incubator. All of my ventures are self-funded.
yeah.
Sariling sikap,
That's you.
uh, which is which is inefficient if you want to get something done. Pero yun that's the reality. Pero
Yeah.
yun na, if we zoom out, looking at it macro, if we even struggle to put call center agents in jobs because there's not enough of them, much less pa founders. So I echo
Oh,
your despair na the founder population needs to expand. But
no.
sige, I'll track it back to the BPOs themselves were kind of like startups at the beginning, and there were an early cohort of very enterprising Filipinos. I'm just talking out of people I
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah,
who got that together. And actually, they didn't necessarily. Yeah, in a way, they had to fight regulation because there were existing rules that prevented BPOs from getting created. One big one was you need there's a maximum amount that the foreigner can own, no, and that
yeah.
limits capital coming in.
Investment. Yeah,
And they short circuited that. They created a sandbox called PEZA, and now there's now BOI. So BPOs don't have that limit, no, and I think that was one big parang limit that was removed. And then they also had tax incentives, they had all these benefits. And so all I'm saying is there probably will be a small population of founders anyway, but you
yeah,
need this conducive parang regulatory environment to bring it out. Now
yeah.
if you scale that to the startup scene, I don't know what keeps us. There's a startup act already. There's innovation, but I feel that the enabling factors don't seem to be there. And I want to zoom in on AI. I wonder if you had thoughts about for AI specifically. What are those regulatory or parang structural challenges apart from not enough founders that prevent us from maximizing it? Kaya, what do you think?
Now, yeah. So just to react on a couple of points you shared earlier, like it's sort of like employee founders first and foremost. Like these people are the people that actually can create jobs. Like the
Right.
people can find opportunities and create them, and this is like why we need them the most. And like the second part here is um I don't know, like I'm not a huge fan or like I haven't seen like strong like results from government partnerships. And
Yep.
I might be mistaken about this. I've met with a lot of government people and they come from a good place, but unfortunately there's just a lot of like things that they are out of their control to like create this. So like to solve this founder problem, we need uh people like the founders of YC, like the infrastructure type of companies. Like YC is called YC because it's Y Combinator is a term in computer science that it's a program that creates programs, and
Mm.
YC is a company that creates companies. It's and my point here is like we need more people like Paul Graham here in our country to like our own versions of this. So like create these ecosystems with like, and be the ones leading like what telling like, hey, this is what we need from the government, and that won't solve all of the problems, but they need to like build their own like the infrastructure for that. So where I
So
see this,
infrastructure is a potential gap, no? Na if we could fix that. And when you say infrastructure, is it data centers or ano, what are you referring to? Is it
like
internet connectivity?
in startups, it's the one community, and then two, it's the investors as well. In Cebu in particular, we don't have. I might be wrong about this, and I apologize for like, the VCs here, but I don't know if like, we actually have a VC here in Cebu that invests in startups. Like the Y Combinator problem is their problem there is to convince the great people in like working for like fan companies to don't work for like these great companies or like this big corporate companies, build a startup of your own. And this
No,
is a
no,
mindset
you're
shift.
hitting the nail on the head, and I'll be the bad guy, and I'll say many of the quote unquote VCs in the Philippines are actually kids of the incumbents. They're kids of the conglomerates. They're
Yeah, yeah,
so of course no disrespect to you guys, pero other than having money, I don't see any value coming from that cohort. No, in
yeah.
fact, I can count with my fingers the number of times I've actually met a founder under these programs. Anyway, sige, I'll leave it there. No,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't wanna create more trolls, no. Pero ganun. Sorry
Oh,
guys, I don't see it. Happy to
yeah,
be proven wrong, but I don't see it.
yeah, yeah. But here comes like the mindset shift, though. Like, kanang,
Yep.
um, YC doesn't create great founders. They find and select them. They
Okay.
find and select them. And here comes like the mindset shift that I don't like about the Filipino founder culture. Like, we need more investment. We need more like infrastructure for this. We like all of the reasons not to start a startup exists anywhere else in the world. It's the same set of problems.
Yeah, for sure.
If like here comes when I say to my community, like I'm advocating for them to create their own startups, especially those that are in tawag ito, big positions or like have this particular skill set that no one else has. Is that like you don't get into YC and become a great founder.
Right.
You need to become a great founder wherever you are. Like build a skill set, show people that you are a great founder before you get into YC. And like YC is just an accelerator. They're not a creator. They don't like create the companies. They just accelerate it.
Yeah.
And
Well, what I like about them is
this problem.
you shared the startup school,
Yeah.
and we'll have that link on the bottom. Plus, you're
Yes.
doing your own part also in educating founders, so that'll go a long way. But suffice it to say, if I were much younger, wanted to be a startup founder, the
No.
first thing you should really do is book a plane to Singapore or some other country,
Yeah.
build it there, fund it there, and then come back to the Philippines if you need people. That's another thing that I think you need to
Yes.
add to your bullet points. The founders in the Philippines keep thinking about just the Philippines. We have to think
Yes.
globally. We
Yes.
have to think about global solutions. Stop thinking about
100%.
local solutions. Ganun eh.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And here comes like now I'm trying to convince you back against not like you're still young. I don't know how old you are, but you can still start a startup. And like the majority of the startups that actually work are not created by the young ones, 20 to 30s. They're
Fair.
created by I actually don't know how old you are also for this.
But
Like,
you're preaching to the choir, no? I have my fingers in a number of ventures, so
okay,
don't worry
good.
about that, no. But
Love that. Yeah.
in fact, this is my way of actually encouraging more. Eh. They need to
Yes.
get the passion.
Yes.
Pero
Yes.
sige, unfortunately, we're at the hour again,
Yeah.
and we started the conversation with BPOs. We probably need another chat about startups per se, and I have a lot to say about it, having gone through the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Pero back on that BPO argument, maybe if you could maybe succinctly summarize kind of your position on it, and then maybe a call to action both to the BPOs and the prospective AI founders looking to tap that market.
Yeah. So we have a fundamental problem. And I don't think anyone will deny this. We have a fundamental problem, and it roots in the value chain of like the entire industry. So the BPOs are focused on execution, delivery, and ensuring that the demand is met hiring, training, and all of this, I liken that to Bowman in like in the last couple of years, or sorry, last couple of innovation cycles, and they're not gonna go away. They have distribution. There's as I mentioned, switching cost and all of that. But if you look at a longer perspective of this, 10, 20 years, 50 years down the line, now things are like, it's like a vignette. Like things are becoming darker and darker as you look at it. And I also don't want to paint a picture of a doomer's perspective, like, okay, let's just hide underneath, like bury ourselves and under the ground and not just solve this problem. This is not a problem right now. I actually advocate, like, let's prepare for it. Like, one of the things that are advantages of the BPOs is they have a lot of money. They've built like the distribution channels on this. And one thing that I see like the best people of this particular industry do is they build a separate company to compete with them. This is where the venture studio, the product centers, the innovation centers of the companies like set up, like a venture studio tackling the same problem but from a different approach, and like a product center like that just like creates the same products to like do the same problem. But the problem is like internal politics in making that happen, because you're competing, you're cannibalizing income. It's a dynamic that you need to balance well, and I'd say disrupt yourselves because you have like the distribution channels. Eat that up and like build those particular competitors on your own so you can employ people under that umbrella. Now for the individuals in the BPO like industry, again there are some industries that are untouchable because of regulation and accountability issues, liability issues and all of that. But the majority is not that. The majority is are like roles that we can automate. And I wanna ring the bell here of like take control of your own destiny. Upskill, learn, and like learn how to be a founder. Learn skill sets that will protect you from the future. And I'd say the only thing that I can't see getting automated in the next 100 to 200 years, which what we should care about in like the span of things, it's becoming a founder, becoming an entrepreneur. Because where do you even begin? You can't classify that. You can't like enumerate the tasks of it. So like that's like the thing that I love for more people to study, whether you're in school or in BPO. Focus in on like upskilling yourself in this skills that can create a lot of value for you and actually employ more people if you build something useful. And like it's a skill that will never go away. It's like building stuff, founding stuff, and it's now an imperative to become a founder, not just like it's something that something I can do later on in my life. Like build stuff on the side. It's easier to build stuff now. Go to lovable.dev, go to Claude, go to ChatGPT, ask them like, hey, there's a problem. I know, how can I solve it? And interact with it. And like try to like build it on your own and hone in your value proposition. And like to solve the startup problem, the founder problem, to the VC problem, the startup ecosystem problem, we need great founders. These are the parts that I say, like we need winners, people who constantly fail and fail and fail and fail and just keeps on trying, because that will signal to like the market like that this is a market to invest in, and we need to make it obviously stupid, like to make an investment here. Like they would be really fucking stupid to not invest in this company because they're creating a lot of value that you cannot ignore. And that's like the part that I'd say our shortest path to victory is like to have more founders and like give them what they need, and like the founders that just ignore all of the things that are difficult about it and do it anyway, and show the rest of the world that it's possible. Because that's the magic of startup and software and the internet. You can build something in the four corners of the room here in Cebu, and I can solve someone else's problem across the world. And if you could just hone in on that, if you can just like tell everyone that this is possible, you can do this, and like these are all the resources that you need. Lock yourself up in your room in the next 3 months or so and build something useful. Or actually, not lock yourself up, constantly sell out in like the startup practice, but at the same time, like just like learn about it and like build stuff. Now it's not just like a doomer's picture of the future. It's dark for this existing industry, but it's light for like the overall picture in like the broader perspective of things. Because who wants to be call center agent anyways? Who wants to be like cursed at, like work ungodly hours and all of those fun stuff that we know and love and hate in like the call center industry? It's just something out of necessity, like, that we do because it has a lot of money in. And I want to paint the picture that it's not the only option. It's there's a lot more out there. It just requires a lot of work as well. And we, as infrastructure players, as community builders, our goal is like to make people luckier and show them the path, show them like, hey, this is something that you can do, and people have done, and there's nothing separating you from that. So like, go ahead and build stuff that people want. And that's where this whole advocacy of mine like is coming from, is because it's not going to be an overnight problem. We're going to keep talking about this for the next 5 to 10 years, and we'll just have like minimal results, but that's okay because we just need a couple of winners who keep trying to like show people that this is possible. And that's what keeps me awake at night in a good way.
Okay. With that, Jerel Valarde, thanks for joining us and hope to see you on another conversation.
I love that. Yeah. Thanks, Doc.